The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Save Time, Increase Productivity Using Conga and Adobe Sign. Just before we begin, I'd like to run through a few housekeeping items, and I'd like to remind you all that you're in listen-only mode this afternoon. If you have any questions, please enter them into the Q&A function in the chat window, and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. Any questions we do not get to will be answered offline after this call. So again, thank you all for joining. First and foremost, we'd like to introduce your speakers for this afternoon's call. So my name is Phil Elliott. I'm the Corporate Sales Team Leader for Conga here in EMEA. Delighted that our partner Adobe and Rebecca Harris, the Partner Account Executive, is also joining us this afternoon, as well as Rupert Wills, one of the Senior Solution Architects at Adobe. So what are we going to cover in the next 30 or 35 minutes? We're going to do intros, we're going to talk a little bit about who Conga are as a business, who Adobe are as a business, how we've worked together over the last 7 or 8 years. Myself and Rupert from Adobe will also run through demos of the respective technologies and how they complement each other. And delighted that we also have Heidi Lynch from Jobsite and a customer speaker who's going to talk about her joint experiences using Adobe and Conga in conjunction over the last couple of years. So first and foremost, who are Conga as an organization? And this has changed a little bit over the last 10 years. So if this question was asked 1 year ago, Conga was a document generation provider. So Conga has been around for over 10 years now, vast experience on the Salesforce App Exchange and the Salesforce Platinum ISV partner. Our mission as a business is to provide mission-critical applications that transform business in the realm of data, documents, contracts, and reporting within Salesforce. So over the past 6 months, Conga have actually acquired a couple of businesses, one of which is Action Grids, which is a gridding solution for Salesforce, which turns Salesforce list views into Excel, and also Conga Novatus. Novatus is a contract management system that have worked for a long period of time with Adobe. So we are no longer just document generation, but we are data management. We're used to create presentations, proposals, quotes, contracts, and most importantly, for the purpose of this session, work with the team at Adobe to get this executed as a business. So we're going to focus today not on the Conga Action Grid technologies or the Conga Novatus technologies, but the Conga Composer product line, our flagship product that has over 8,000 customers globally. And what is it that Conga Composer does? We use Salesforce and we use the data from any object in Salesforce, be it a standard object like an opportunity or an account, or a custom object. And we enable you to either use the native Microsoft Office suite and, of course, Adobe PDFs to create smart, professional, dynamic documents. Really important when we talk about what Conga is and what Conga Composer are as a business. We are not just document creation, we're dynamic document creation. And I'll show more of that when we go into the demo later today. So what I mean by that is if the country is the UK, create or use the UK terms and conditions. If a certain field is ticked within Salesforce, pull that information into the contract or the quote or the proposal. Very much sophisticated document generation, not just a basic mail merge. But most importantly, we have a range of flexible delivery options. So you could choose to generate an agreement and simply save it to Salesforce or print it out. But what we find is document generation works best when we actually interface with our partners as Adobe and make this a full electronic process from the start of document generation to execution. And when Rebecca and Rupert talk later, they'll talk about how the agreement can be placed back into Salesforce, and not just the agreement itself, but actually data that it types into the agreement as part of execution. Really important as well, you can generate agreements by clicking a button, but you can also automate these. So you could put them on a schedule, send documents in batch, maybe it could be invoices at 2 o'clock this afternoon, or it could also be triggered by a workflow. For instance, if sales rep moves sales stage to negotiation and review, automatically launch the Conga transaction and send that out by Adobe signature. So as I mentioned earlier, 6 to 7 months ago, the Conga Acceleration Suite was documents and reports, but we have added data with regards to our action grid technology and also contracts. And coming in the very near future is some actually redlining technology. So lots of synergy between the Conga business and the Adobe Sign business. So at this point, I would like to hand over to Rebecca Harris at Adobe to talk a little bit about Adobe and the Adobe Document Cloud.
Thanks, Phil. Hi, everyone. Rebecca Harris. I'm the Partner Account Exec. So I'm responsible for our relationship and our integration with Conga and Salesforce over here in EMEA. I'm going to take you through a quick run-through of what we do and why we do it and our partnership with Conga. So as a brief introduction, Adobe is known for many things, but really we exist to help change the world through digital experiences. It's about delivering the right experience to the right person at the right time. Adobe's experience in digital documents spans over 20 years. So when we combine that experience with powerful tools such as Conga and platforms such as Salesforce, is when we're able to deliver a fully end-to-end automated business process, which ultimately provides an exceptional customer experience. Some of the benefits, I know Phil's probably going to go into this a bit later on, of digitizing the document process that our customers see are things like increased revenue. It's easier for your customers to do business with you. So they can also do business with you at anywhere, at any time, on any web-enabled device. It also brings with it security. Adobe delivers legally binding digital documents which enhance compliances, it enhances operational efficiencies throughout the business. And that's not just sales. I know we're talking a lot about sales today, but it's also legal, procurement, even HR. It also brings increased productivity as well, so less time being spent chasing contracts, giving that time back to whether it's sales or procurement to be doing what they should be doing and not just the admin tasks, so no more loading them into the system, tracking documents, etc. But when we talk about digital transformation and creating these powerful experiences, it's not just about simply replacing paper-based workflows with digital alternatives. It's about transforming the document workflow. If you think about 80% of all document processes still rely on paper. It eats up a lot of time. On average, a third of every workday is spent on manual admin tasks, like I said before, searching the documents, maybe re-entering data into forms that weren't captured originally, other sort of low-value activities like uploading attachments and that. And the document workflow is really where the Conga and the Adobe partnership comes into its own. By leveraging the two technologies combined, our solution works to remove any efficiencies of information silos, any disconnected processes that you might have within the business. Thinking about integrating different information types, such as structured and unstructured content, rich media, both print and digital sources combined. I know Phil and Rupert are probably going to go into this a bit in their demo, so I'm not going to ruin their party just yet. Adobe and Conga have been partners for over 7 years. We've got close to 200 joint customers globally who process millions of digital processes a year. Heidi's going to be talking a bit later on. Jobsite are a joint customer of ours. Also, Groupon are a joint customer of ours. Groupon probably put through, I think it's 1.3 million processes and documents through our systems a year. And at the moment, if you think about the green aspects alone, they've saved nearly 400K a year from going paperless. And Phil, I think if I'm talking about joint customers, it's probably a good time for me to hand back over to you to start talking about a couple of other customers that we've got.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that overview, Rebecca. So, again, as Rebecca said, Conga and Adobe have partnered together for the last 7 years. Apologies, there may be some slight audio issues. So as Rebecca said, Conga and Adobe have partnered with each other for the last 7 years. Apologies, or there may be some slight audio issues. Apologies, we're just having a few audio issues, so please bear with us for a few seconds. Okay, sorry, apologies. I think those audio issues have stopped now. So, as I was saying, Conga and Adobe have partnered with each other for the last 7 years. And Conga have been in the Salesforce ecosystem, like Adobe, for a longer period than that. And we're all about maximizing your investment within the Salesforce technology. So, as Rebecca said, we have over 200 customers globally. Some of those will be familiar names for you in the UK, organisations like Groupon and Reed and Shreddit and Just Eat, long-term customers of ours, and as Rebecca said, delighted that we have Heidi from Jobsite on the call later as well. So at this point, really just want to talk about why Conga and Adobe, why we work together in partnership. So from a Conga perspective, Adobe do have an element of document generation out of Salesforce, but people tend to use a Conga solution when they need to generate a lot of Salesforce data in their documents. Maybe they require multiple custom versions, or they need to schedule a batch process. Also, dynamic document generations I touched on earlier, logic-based, not just simple mail merge. It could also be organizations using multiple templates, different locations of business globally. From the Adobe perspective, it's all about time saved to actually execute the agreement, get that signature. Go back 10, 15 years before Adobe and electronic signature, it was fax, it was post, it could be weeks before a salesperson receives a contract signature. But Rupert will talk later about the importance of bi-directional data flow. Conga using Salesforce to generate an agreement, but then Adobe actually using their execution engine to write data back into Salesforce as well. So it could be a purchase order number, it could be a change of address, for example. So at this point, it's a great chance to go and transition into a brief demo of the Conga and Adobe offerings. So hopefully on my screen in front of you, you can see my Salesforce demo screen right now. So at this point, if there is such a thing as a standard Salesforce opportunity, you will see opportunity name, account name, stage, amount, etc. You will also see these Adobe links, create contract Adobe Sign, create contract Adobe Sign one click. Then you have the products, contact roles, etc. Now, from a Conga perspective, you can initiate a document generation process through a button or a link, and you can create as many different buttons or links as possible. So in this instance, I'm actually going to click on one without Adobe to begin with, and then Rupert's going to talk about how Conga and Adobe work in unison and actually focus on the execution piece. But the first thing I'd like to show during these demos is the dynamic nature of the Conga solution. So you'll see there's a tick box here, contract include priority shipping. This is just an example of the dynamic document generation capabilities that Conga has. You can actually have rules or parameters within your template itself or within the actual button that drives information that resides on the actual template. So if I click on create an email contract, you're now launching the Conga system. So again, we are all about creating smart, professional, dynamic looking documents. Now, there's a range of different options here. You can, and what Rupert will show later, is this run in background mode, one click, and the Adobe eSign piece automatically kicking off. But you could also choose to simply email out. Maybe it's the first stage of a contract that you're sending for review. You may want to download it and save it to Salesforce. Maybe you want to save a copy to notes and attachments, or maybe your big chatter user organization, you want to save it to chatter, or you want to log an activity and a follow-up call. You can do that, but you can also customize this and run this in the background. But what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to just click preview to show you an example of the type of professional-looking, sophisticated, dynamic documents that Conga creates. So at this point, as I just bring this up in PDF, you'll see the company logo is pulled through. We can include rich text, images, color fonts. We can group products in this example as a contract. But you'll remember I clicked on include priority shipping, or didn't click on include priority shipping, and that can be included or not included accordingly. You can also do things such as saying, within your template logic, if country of the account is UK, include the UK terms and conditions or a pertinent clause to the UK. It could be if country is Germany, include the German terms and conditions or a German clause or additional tax that may be relevant in that market, for example. So really important to stress that we're dynamic document generation. And where we work closely with Adobe tends to be in the quotes and contract sector, and that's where Heidi from Jobsite is going to talk about later today. Conga is also used for a range of other use cases. So that could be invoices that don't require a signature, that could be advanced Salesforce reporting, and it could also be things like QBRs and account plans. So I'm just going to click on one more example before I hand over to Rupert and show you the account brief example. So you'll see here we're using some Google Maps into Salesforce. We have information on the actual account here about who the contacts are, the opportunities, the cases, project outstanding, etc. And if I simply click this create account break, we're generating an agreement here which is absolutely nothing to do with a signature, but the great thing about the Conga and Adobe partnership is if you purchase Conga and Adobe, you can use us in unison for signature, but you can also use some of the Conga functionality to generate different types of documents that you may require for your organization out of Salesforce. So lots of people come to us here at Conga and say, we want to generate a quote or contract. And then typically, a few months down the line, they're adding multiple different use cases. So here's an example of an account brief or an account plan, where we're grouping contacts, recent cases for the account, projects, etc. So again, just to conclude the Conga piece, Conga is all about dynamic document generation and leveraging that data in Salesforce to create these dynamic documents that literally are created in a couple of clicks, as opposed to people using Salesforce, copy and pasting data and taking 10, 20, 30 minutes to create a document. So at this point, I would like to hand over to Rufus from Adobe, who is going to actually talk about how Conga and Adobe work in unison to execute these agreements.
Thank you very much, Phil. You've just passed across to me. I've shared my screen, so everybody should be seeing that now. Phil, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Good, good. Okay, so what we're going to look at now is how Conga and Adobe Sign can work together to capture a legally binding electronic signature on a document, but driving it through Salesforce. So I think Phil's raised a few points. I'm going to actually show you this in a relatively interactive way. However, all of these processes can be run silently and dynamically based on, sort of on a batch process, on a schedule, or on a workflow in the background. So what we're really going to do here is just give you a flavor of what's possible by integrating Conga, Salesforce, and Adobe's cloud signing solution into your activities within Salesforce. So what you can see on the screen at the moment is my Salesforce instance. I'm actually just going to go into an opportunity, and I'm going to drive this from an opportunity. However, as Phil's already mentioned, we work with all of the standard objects that are provided by Salesforce, but we also work with any custom objects that you may want to use as well. Now, before I execute this example, I just want to sort of highlight a couple of points for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Conga to generate the document, but I'm also going to be using a little bit of the data that comes out of this opportunity to populate the email that I'm going to send to the person for signing. You'll see down below here we're actually going to incorporate copies of our signed contracts into our Salesforce opportunity automatically. And I'm actually going to pick up the primary contact within my Salesforce opportunity to drive this. So that's the person who I'm actually going to get to actually sign the document. Now, as I mentioned, there's a number of ways we can execute. I'm literally just going to click on this Conga document button. So this is going to effectively initiate this sending process. What's going to happen in the background is we're going to generate the document, and we're not going to interact in quite the way Phil has done, because it's going to give you a flavor of what's possible. But after we've signed it, I just want to bring you back afterwards to the PO number and the stage, because we're going to not only take data using Conga to merge into the document, but we're also going to have the ability to drive data back into Salesforce as well. So just to show how easy this is, I'm going to click on Conga document. So Conga Composer is basically going to go away, do all of the rendering that it does normally, and as Phil has already shown us, to create our document. But at the end of this one, rather than presenting it to us, it's actually going to pass it to Adobe Sign into one of our agreement objects, which will render on the screen now, which will effectively start the process for me. So what you can see here is I have an agreement in draft. You'll see down here I've got a Word document, which is the one that's been generated by Conga. Now we can accept this as Word or as Excel or as a PDF. We don't mind what document it is, and there can be multiple documents. You'll see here it's picked up my primary contacts. This is who this is going to go to, signing. And I'm just going to authenticate them based on email, but I could add in things like password or phone authentication if I wanted to. I'm also just having a single signer, but we can have multiple participants in this process, and they could be signers or approvers, or they could be delegators. But I'm going to keep this really simple as we're a bit tight for time. You'll see I've populated a message which is going to appear in the email body when I send it through. I've got a completion deadline, so the person's limited as to how long they can take to sign this. And all I'm going to do at this point is click Send. And this is going to initiate a transaction on the Adobe Sign platform. So that document that was generated by Conga is now being uploaded to Adobe Sign. The details of the signer and the details that are going to be contained in the email have automatically been uploaded as well. And this is going to generate an email which is going to pop into my inbox momentarily. Within Salesforce, we update dynamically. So you'll see this is now out for signature. It's showing down below that we've initiated the process and it's been sent for signature. If I go to my email, I'm just going to force it to synchronize. There we go. You'll see that I've just received an email. You'll see we've got the Conga and Adobe logo across the doc, so you can sort of customize this to your heart's content. You'll see we've got the message that's come through from Salesforce from our opportunity, and I'm literally just going to click on the document to sign it. It's as simple as this. Now I'm doing this all on my laptop, and you've probably guessed that I'm using a Mac. But I could be on a phone, so I could be on an iPhone or an Android phone, or I could be on a tablet doing this. Anything that has a modern web browser allows me to actually interact with these documents and sign them. You'll see the data has been merged in by Conga from the opportunity. You'll see down here I can put a purchase order number in, so I'm just going to put in Conga, and I'm going to use today, which is the 10th of the 11th, and you'll see that back in Salesforce in a moment. I'm going to click to sign, and because we're e-signing, it's all about intent to sign. So I could literally just type my name. If I was on a tablet, it would be more natural for me to scribble it, or I could upload an image of my signature, but these are all legally binding ways of capturing the electronic signature. I'm going to apply. I'm going to click to sign, and so from the customer's perspective, they've now signed a legally binding contract. In the background, we are synchronizing with Salesforce in real time. So if I go back to my agreement object, which is on the screen, and refresh it, you'll see that it's now signed. You'll see that we have copies of the signed contract attached to it. We've tracked all of that through the process. I, as the signer, will have received an email separately with a copy of what I've signed. If I just step into the opportunity as well, you'll see that the stage is now closed and won. You'll see that that PO number has been merged back into my Salesforce record, and I have a copy of the agreement actually attached to the record. Now, I used an opportunity, but it could be any object that we're using to drive this. And that is a very brief demonstration of how Conga and Adobe Sign can actually work together inside Salesforce. At this point, I'm going to pass back over to Phil.
Thank you very much for that, Rupert. So at this point, again, want to apologise with a few audio issues earlier in the call this afternoon, but I would like to introduce you all to Heidi Lynch, one of the business systems analysts at Jobsite, based in Caverns on the South Coast. And Heidi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Phil.
Thank you again for joining. So, a couple of questions for you, and I know Rebecca is going to join us shortly as well to answer a few of the questions. So, first and foremost, could you give us a little overview of Jobsite as a business and your role within the organisation as it goes to interacting with Salesforce, Adobe, and Conga?
Yeah, sure. So Jobsite, we're an award-winning multi-sector job board. We've been around since 1995, so we've got over 20 years experience in the online recruitment industry. Our key sectors at the moment, IT, engineering and finance. As a company, we serve about 120,000 jobs to about 7 million candidates a month, so there's a lot of sort of candidates and jobs on the site. We have an umbrella with 2 other niche boards under Jobsite as well. So we have City Jobs and eMed Careers as well. There are other sites that we run parallel in our system. Myself personally, I've been at Jobsite now for over 16 years, so quite a while with the business. And when I started initially, I was actually working sort of on the sales side. So I had a background of how the sales guys worked and how they generated their contracts and how they sort of worked initially. And then I actually moved after about 6 years from sales into the IT industry, and I moved over to that department and worked as a business analyst. And yeah, so I sort of trained up, became ISO diploma qualified in the company, and then moved on. We had an implementation project in 2013 with Salesforce, and as part of that team, I was one of the analysts on board. And then as we had the 6-month project and the go live, I became certified as a Salesforce administrator. Moving on from there, took on the role as the Salesforce systems manager, and currently work with the Salesforce team and the stakeholders involved, the partners like yourselves that we work with, aligning our current and our future roadmap. So that's where we are today.
Perfect.
That's great. I guess a good place to start, I'll start, but is could you explain what documents that you're using and you're getting signed with the Adobe Conga integration at the moment, Heidi?
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, we primarily use Conga and eSign for our contracts. So these are our client contracts that we generate out for recruitment services, and we have two different types of contracts that we generate to our clients, what we call as a block and monthly contract. So we generate two different Conga templates for those. We have two different merge fields and set up for those templates in the system. Once the Conga templates are generated via Salesforce, we then use the eSign process to then capture the electronic signature and pull that back into the system as well. So that was our primary function for using Conga and eSign initially 3 years ago, which we're still using to date. But in addition to that, in the last year, we've actually also onboarded our HR department. They now use it for our employee onboarding process, and they also use it for any internal staff documents that they need validating or approval or sign off on. So I'm actually now a user of eSign as well as a partner. So
fantastic. You're a super user for us.
Yeah.
Do you have a view then on how long it would take in contracts to get signed before and after Adobe?
Yeah, I mean, well, when I started, like I said, I've been here 16 years. So when I started initially years ago, our sales process went right back from literally writing on a bit of paper your contract, what services you wanted, handing it over to a different department who'd upload it into. So I've been right through from the manual intervention process where we'd literally send an agreement out and have it signed and faxed back through to pre-Salesforce. We did have an in-house built CRM system, which one of our developers created, and we had a very basic eSign process of our own, again, that one of our developers created. So we never actually really tracked the process from start to finish on how long it actually took to generate a contract, but it was quite a lengthy process because we had sort of a 4-step process of generating the contract, and then it went out, but we had no visibility of once it had actually gone out where it had gone. So since using Adobe and Conga in Salesforce instance, we get a lot of visibility from the report angle, so we know when a contract's gone out and been signed and come back, how long that's taken us. As an average, our contracts are taking about 26 minutes from when they actually leave our system to when they come back signed. We know that about 88% of our agreements as an average are actually being signed and completed and sent back. So there's loads of information that we're able to sort of capture now, which we couldn't before.
Wow, that's fantastic. 26 minutes.
Yes. Yeah, 24 this month as an average. So we have a great report that comes over to us, and actually send it over to our finance directors and our sales directors, and it's great because it sort of shows them how many contracts we've sent, what's been sent back, how many minutes it's taken to sign. But yeah, as an average, since we've been going the last 3 years, it's about 26 minutes for a contract to be literally from the minute it leaves the system to it comes back, and we're flagged up in Salesforce that it's been e-signed. So pretty quick turnaround.
Right.
And I guess, Heidi, you mentioned 26 minutes to execute the agreement. I guess using Conga, you're generating the agreements in a couple of clicks of a button.
Yeah, so the process at the moment, like I said before, pre-Salesforce, I know it's the processes that we've implemented. Pre-Salesforce, our inbuilt CRM system, we actually had two processes that, so we had a CRM that would generate the document, and then we pass that across to another system, which would then our finance team and our customer support team and our managers would pick up, and we'd have a whole approval process in another system. So when we implemented Salesforce, we actually combined that whole system, and that gave us visibility across all of those departments as well, so everyone can see where the contract's at, what status it's at, who's approved it. So really depending on the contract type and if it requires approval via our credit team or not, if it requires a management approval, for example, if it's gone above a certain discount, the process itself can be extremely quick to execute a document. We can literally add in the products and services. If it meets all our existing approval recommendations, then we can actually just click create document, and then from there we can bring up, as you saw earlier in the demo, the Conga Composer screen. We were able to bypass that screen if we wanted to when we set it up, but we actually wanted our sales guys to be able to validate what's on the document and say, yes, that's definitely the correct services and the correct discount we're offering. And then they continue and literally click a button, send contract, and that's when it leaves Salesforce system.
Excellent. And what was the impression internally from the sales guys or externally from your customers about, you know, what these documents look like and how easy the process was to generate?
So internally, the sales guys think it's really, really quick and easy. It is literally a few clicks of a button, and like I said, with the visibility across all departments, that's really, really good. Externally, the customers, the feedback that we've had has been really, really positive. They literally will open up the document via the email by just clicking on the link, and it will take them straight into the document. And then the thing they actually love is the ability to be able to literally click in the certain fields, and it takes them through the process, so they're not scrolling down the page trying to find where they actually need to sign it. It prompts them and it takes them through the process. As part of our legal team, we have a couple of extra fields which we've been asked to capture. That was just our sort of in-house process where we wanted to be able to, like you push the purchase order number back into Salesforce, we do that too. We also capture their name and ask them to put a business job title down. So we'll capture some extra fields, but they're all merged back into Salesforce once they sign the agreement. And yes, from an external perspective as well, it's so quick and easy to sign because they just sort of click the buttons, and then as soon as they've actually e-signed the contract, our sales guys will receive an email notification flagging up saying that that client's e-signed it. So the process for us, if we've got no sort of barriers approval-wise, or once the contract comes back, we can actually have a contract sent out, back and up and live to the customer within about half an hour.
Excellent.
Yeah, that is good. So my sales team will thank me for asking this. So Heidi, what's next for the Adobe Conga integration within Jobsite? I know we were talking earlier about the HR use case. Is there any other stuff?
Yes. So, well, I'm on the customer advisory board meeting for Adobe, so that's really handy. Every sort of 6 months or so, I go and speak with other customers that are using it, and that's a really good way of us also looking at what else we can do in the system. That was how we actually onboarded our HR team as well, because we realised there was other opportunities in the business we were missing. We have regular sort of contact with our account manager as well, and quite often when he comes in, I'll drag some sales users and things in as well so that they can feed back to him on any feedback we've had from customers. As with anything, there's always improvements the guys using it want. So one of the big key things that we're looking for at the moment is the ability for the whole e-sign piece to integrate with the prepayment. So that's something we're speaking currently with Adobe about, so that when we actually send a contract out for signature, we can actually purchase, pull in the payment section as well. But the other thing that we've not sort of got on the agenda for next is a training piece with Conga. So we're looking to get some training across the team so that we can generate more and more documents out of Salesforce using Conga and eSign.
Perfect. And Heidi, thank you so much from Rebecca and myself for joining and answering the questions today.
Pleasure.
There's been lots of questions that have come in, but due to the fact we're slightly overrun on time this afternoon, we will get back to you all offline with the answers here. And just really want to say from Conga and Adobe a massive thank you for taking 40 minutes out of your day this afternoon. We will be in contact, but any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us at the email addresses provided. And we look forward to talking to you and working with you in the future. Thank you very much.